Have you ever looked in the mirror and wondered where you truly come from? For me, that question wasn't just a fleeting thought. It was the story of my life. My name is Adam. I grew up within the quiet, predictable walls of an orphanage, where family was a word whispered in bedtime stories, a concept as distant as the stars. My world was a collection of shared rooms and borrowed memories, but I always felt a piece of me was missing, a chapter of my own story left unwritten. My only connection to that unknown past was a single, faded photograph. A woman, her smile both warm and sad, holding a baby. Me. On the back, a cryptic symbol, an elegant swirl of lines that felt like a secret language only I was meant to decipher. This symbol, this ghost of a clue, became my compass. It was time to stop wondering. It was time to find my way home. My journey began with that photograph clutched in my hand. I packed a small bag, said my goodbyes to the only home I'd ever known, and stepped out into a world that felt impossibly large. The first city was a blur of noise and faces. I showed the photo to anyone who would listen. Shopkeepers, librarians, strangers on the street. Most just shook their heads, their eyes filled with a polite pity. But I learned to see the flicker of recognition, that subtle pause before a no. Days turned into weeks. Hope is a fragile thing. It needs to be fed. Mine was starving. I was about to give up when I saw it. There, on a graffiti-covered wall, was my symbol, larger than life, painted in vibrant blue. My heart hammered against my ribs. I waited for hours until the artist returned, a young woman with paint-stained hands and kind eyes. She looked at my photo, then at her art. "This," she said, her voice soft, "it's the mark of the river folk, people who lived by the water generations ago. My grandmother used to tell me stories about them. She said they were protectors, dreamers. She didn't know my family, but she gave me a direction, a name for my mystery, the river folk, a new thread to follow." The artist's story led me to a sleepy riverside town, a place that seemed caught in time. The air smelled of damp earth and history. Here, the faces were older, the gazes more knowing. I found myself on a porch, sitting across from an old woman named Ilara. Her hands, wrinkled like a map of her long life, trembled slightly as she held my photograph. Her eyes, cloudy with age, welled up with tears. "I remember her," she whispered, her voice a fragile echo. "Your mother. Her name was Lena. She was bright, full of life, but she carried a great sadness. Ilara told me of a forbidden love, a promise of a future that was stolen away. She said Lena had to leave, to protect her child, to give me a chance she never had. She spoke of a hidden house, a sanctuary marked with the family symbol. But she also spoke of a man, a relative who had been against the union from the start, a man who might still hold the key, or keep the door locked forever. Her words painted a picture of a mother I'd never met, a woman of courage and sacrifice. I wasn't just chasing a symbol anymore. I was chasing her ghost, her love. The final leg of my journey was filled with a mix of dread and electrifying hope. Ilara's story pointed me to another city, to a man she described as a keeper of secrets. Finding him was harder. He wasn't on a porch waiting for me. I tracked him down in a dusty, antique shop, surrounded by the ghosts of other people's lives. He was older, with a stern face that seemed carved from stone. When I showed him the photograph, his expression didn't soften. It hardened. "You shouldn't be here," he said, his voice low and cold. He denied knowing anything, turning his back on me. But as I went to leave, defeated, he spoke again, his back still turned. "She always believed you would find your way back. She made me promise, if you were strong enough to find me, I was to show you the way." He finally turned, his eyes holding a storm of regret and reluctant duty. He wasn't a villain. He was a man bound by an old promise. He gave me an address, a final destination, a place where my search would either end in heartbreak or in the beginning of a new life. The drive was silent, each mile a countdown to the moment of truth. The house stood at the end of a long, overgrown lane, exactly as Ilara had described it. And there, on the weathered wooden door, was the symbol. My symbol. My family's symbol. For a moment, I just stood there, my hand hovering over the door, afraid that the reality behind it could never live up to the hope I had carried for so long. Taking a deep breath, I knocked. The sound echoed loud and final. The door creaked open, and a woman who looked like an older version of the one in my photograph stood there. Her eyes, the same warm, sad eyes, widened in disbelief. Behind her, other faces appeared, curious, then shocked, then welcoming. A murmur went through the room. "It's him. It's Lena's boy." Tears streamed down the woman's face as she reached out a hand. "We never stopped waiting," she sobbed, pulling me into an embrace that felt like coming home. In that moment, surrounded by the warmth of strangers who were not strangers at all, I understood. I was standing in a room full of my family, my aunts, my uncles, my cousins, and my grandmother. The days that followed were a beautiful, overwhelming blur. They shared stories of my mother Lena, filling the empty spaces in my heart with her laughter, her dreams, and her unwavering love for me. They showed me her room, left just as it was, a time capsule of a life cut short. I learned I had her eyes, her stubborn spirit. I was no longer an orphan, a boy defined by what he lacked. I was a son, a grandson, a nephew. I was part of a lineage, a story that stretched back generations, marked by that symbol of the river folk. I found more than a family. I found myself. Home, I realized, isn't just a place with four walls. It's the feeling of being known, of being seen, of belonging. It's the anchor that holds you steady in the storm. My journey started with a question, and it ended with an answer that was more beautiful than anything I could have ever imagined. It ended with me finally truly home. Thank you so much for coming along with me on this incredibly personal journey. If my story resonated with you, I'd be so grateful if you'd like this video and subscribe to the channel. Your support means the world. Until next time, remember that your story is always worth discovering.